Hello, this is Nate Adams, and today I'm going to review Sense Home Energy Monitor's app and walk you through the different features in it. So if you've watched my comparison video, the Sense came out on top. This is the one that I like the best by a pretty large margin. It's nice because it happens to be the least expensive of the monitors that I have worked with. But I want to apply the same framework to this that I did in the comparison video so you can see what the differences are. So of the five things, the first one is ease of install, which this performs very well at. The machine learning devices like this, where you only have two clamps, CT clamps, current transmitter clamps, to install, are very fast. Takes 15 to 30 minutes to install, and that's real world. Where the other varieties where you have to clamp every circuit can take hours to install. Getting them just so, I found, can take as long as 10 hours. So it's a lot of time on install. So Sense does really well at less than a half an hour. The second thing is app quality. As you'll see here, the mobile app is spectacular for Sense. It does not have a web app at all, though, so be aware of that if that's something you really want. The third issue is odometer versus speedometer. So in your car, the odometer tells you how many miles you drove, but it doesn't tell you how fast you drove to drive that many miles. The speedometer, on the other side, tells you how fast you're going, and in the case of Sense here, it will let you look back and see just how much energy was used at any moment all the way back to when you installed the unit. So it's really very spectacular. So it's very, very good at both odometer and speedometer functions, which we'll dig into shortly. The fourth item is data exports, and that is where Sense fails utterly. I do not think there's a way to get data out of the system. I'm sure it's been suggested and they're probably working on it, but I don't think it exists yet. And then the last part of the framework, the fifth part, is reverse polarities, which is where if you put one of the CT clamps on upside down or backwards, so say the label is facing up rather than down, it will show that that circuit is producing power. So in other words, it would be like a solar panel producing power and feeding it to your house instead of using power. And that's impossible because everything in your house is going to use power, not generate, unless you have a solar system or a wind turbine or natural gas generator, something along those lines, something that actually produces power. So reverse polarities is a real problem with all of the other monitors that you monitor circuit by circuit, but these ones seem to perform better. Sense, if you put it in backwards, it looks like the software will see that and reverse it automatically, so you can't get reverse polarities. So of the five things of the framework, ease of install, app quality, odometer versus speedometer, data export, and reverse polarities, Sense performs very well on 4 and then fails on data export. So to me, I am as much as I like data, what I really like are visual representations of data. I don't really like creating a spreadsheet and slicing and dicing the numbers that much. So this is fine for me, as you'll see as we walk through the different features of this app. You can learn just about anything you want to know, but you can't really export the data. Okay, so let's start by taking a look at a couple of things that are on the main screen here. So there's really three things. So you can see there's the bubbles. So I'm moving around AC8. Now this is a good example, actually, of the imperfection. So I think these two together are the heat pump water heater in my house. So I got rid of my natural gas water heater because I'm trying to convert off of fossil fuels, which means I need to use electricity. And then I buy renewable electricity. But it has two legs, and I think one of them pulls 300 watts and the other one pulls 200 watts. But it has issues dealing with that. So the other leg, the heat pump water heater 2, it thinks is my dehumidifier. So it is imperfect in recognizing things. If the wattage poles and the devices themselves have similar signatures, it can be a problem. Because what Sense does is it's very similar to listening to an orchestra and picking out second flute and understanding when second flute comes in and then stops playing. That is basically what Sense is trying to do. And sometimes second flute and second oboe sound close enough that they get confused. So that's what's happening with AC8 and Heat Pump Water Heater 1. In fact, AC8 right now, it's interesting that it thinks that's what it is because, like I said, the dehumidifier and heat pump water heater 2 seem to be confused. Also, it confuses my dishwasher. Well, there's a dehu coming on right there at 600 watts. This also confuses the dishwasher and our coffee maker. So it's not perfect, so don't expect it to be perfect. It's pretty stinking good, and they are actively searching for feedback, so they're trying to make this better as fast as they can, but it's not perfect. You can also see the unknown tab here, so there's about 400 watts on right now. It doesn't know what it is, and it will listen and try and figure out, because maybe that is the fourth flute part, and it'll come back and tell you what that is. There's also the always on bubble. So these are things that are consistently on. It's usually lights, it's the chargers for our laptops. The garage door openers use 8 watts each, just waiting and listening for us to open the door. There's a whole lot of stuff in your house that just uses power all the time, and this varies depending on the time of year, usually between 200 and 300 watts. So that gives you an idea of what these bubbles are, and I kind of love how you can move them around. This whole thing is a bit playful, and I really like that. So that's the bubbles. At the top here, you can see I can switch over to this chart view, and you can watch what's going on in real time in your house. And this is another thing where this app just really is out ahead of everybody else. They let you zoom in and out on what's going on in your house, and it will show you oftentimes when something is turning on, and then you can look for, say, let's see, the plus 12 watts and then the plus 10 watts. So if you want to see what something uses, all you need to do is flick it on and off with your Sense app on, and you can figure it out. So I did this for changing some light bulbs in my house. I had some halogen fixtures, which I wrote a blog on the Energy Smart blog, I think it was back in February, about just this. And all I did was turn things on and off, and I figured out how many watts the fixture used before I changed the light bulbs, and then I checked again after I changed the light bulbs, and I could see what the savings were. Coincidentally, by changing a couple of fixtures that had a bunch of bulbs from halogen to LED, it actually completely offset the use of my heat pump water heater. So it's within 10 or 20 kilowatt hours a month. So, within $1 or $2 a month, changing those light bulbs offset the cost of heating water. And I thought that was pretty spectacular. So anyway, you can zoom way, way out on this. So now we're getting to the day, and then we'll get to the month, and it will hold almost a year. And so you can go back to last August when I installed this thing. Now, one big thing to notice here, see this white gap? That is where the Wi-Fi dropped. This happens a lot with Internet of Things devices. Wi-Fi is really one of their huge Achilles heels. It's the largest Achilles heel. I've had issues with all the indoor air quality monitors that I work with, and it can be very frustrating. I've spent a lot of money on Wi-Fi trying to figure this out, and it's still far from perfect. But they did add a feature recently where it will send you either an email or an alert, depending on what you ask for, when it loses connectivity, which is really good, because this was out for a whole week and I just didn't know. And so it was really nice that they added that feature. So in any case, you can zoom in and out, and see just what's going on and figure out various things. Like this week here, let's see, what is that? Yeah, that was we went for out of town for a long bike ride, rode from Washington D.C. to Pittsburgh, and so you can see that that is just what the house used. So that's the dehumidifier and the water heater, just keeping the hot water warm, lights, various things like that. But it's obvious when you're out of town because you can see when you're not using power. So that's that piece of the screen. The next piece is the timeline here, and you can select which items you want to have on here, and I'll show that in just a little bit. But you can see when things are turning on and off, and then you can select any of these and it takes you into the device itself, and we'll go into this in more detail in a little bit. But you can see exactly what's going on, when it was last on, and so forth. And if this is too much stuff, you can shut these off so that only the things that you're looking for go on here. This is particularly important when you are first installing the thing and you have to figure out, it'll tell you unknown motor 3. And then it's your job to go figure out what is that thing by turning things on and off. And then you can make it so it pops up on this timeline here so you can begin to figure out what's going on. So let's look, the only thing that's on here is unnamed motor 6 because I haven't been playing with the devices that it senses that much. So that is the main screen, and next up we'll dig into the menu. Okay, let's keep going and we will look through different parts of this app. So I'm going to start with the feedback button at the top right so you can see the little talk bubble. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very pro Sense. If you know much about me, I am huge on feedback loops. If you aren't constantly looking for feedback and trying to figure out what's working and what's not, if you have 20 years of experience, you don't really have 20 years of experience. You have 1 year of experience 20 times. When I hear we've always done it that way, that kind of thing frustrates me to no end because it means that person has not tried to figure out how to better themselves over time. So Sense, meanwhile, right in the main part of their app, I mean, they only have, 4 buttons you can push, the hamburger menu over here, the bubble button, the chart button, and then feedback. So they are looking for feedback. And I love that it says we actually read this on the screen. So there's feedback. You can tell them if there's a problem, and you can see Wi-Fi is kind of a key thing that ends up happening. And they'll help you diagnose that. And then you can make a request if there's something you want, like data export would be nice. Boom. I will get an email back about that in a little while. I've sent feedback probably pushing 10 times at this point, and they're always super nice about it and very open to it. So the fact that they want all of this feedback tells you that this system is likely to get better over time, and they have gotten several rounds of funding at this point, so they're a pretty safe horse to bet on. And so that's why this is my favorite, one of many reasons. Okay, let's take a look at the menu over here. So you can see what's going on now, and that's this screen where you can do either the bubbles or the chart. Then there's the usage chart. This is where the odometer versus speedometer functions. This app and this device are nothing short of amazing. This is another one of the big reasons why I love this particular device. So you can see what's going on. Well, the power meter, this is the speedometer. So you can see how much power is being used over time. And if you're close to the time when you're working on it, it'll tell you what it thinks each thing is. So there's my well pump kicking on. You can see it. There's a big spike, and I can zoom in on that so I can see just how much power was being pulled. So 2,400 watts. I have well and septic at my house, and the well pump pulls a ton of juice. You can see it's 2,000 watts, but it doesn't run for very long, so it's not necessarily that big of a deal. But this is the speedometer function, so you can see just how much energy the house was using, or how fast the house was going at any given moment in time. And usually it'll auto zoom in and out, and for some reason it's not. But that's the first time I've seen it hiccup, actually. But I love that they have this zoom in and out feature. None of the other apps has this, and I'm also an expert at the indoor air quality apps. Those only NetAtmo has that feature, and it doesn't measure a lot of things I care about, which is kind of a bummer. Okay, but that's the speedometer feature, which is amazing because you can see how much energy was being used at any given second, any given moment since the thing started recording. Pretty cool. All right, the trends, this is the odometer, so you can see how much actual energy was used, and this is really a super duper amazing feature. So I really like the day function here, so you can see just how much energy was used hour by hour. So this is yesterday morning, and you can see that there was a big spike. That probably was from the heat pump water heater running and making toast, making coffee, just all the stuff that happens first thing in the morning. The day before, you can see it's fairly consistent through the day. Then there's a spike in the evening when we cook dinner and we have an induction stove. So you can really get an idea of when your household is using energy. And then if you look down here, you can see the different devices. Now, like I said, don't trust this 100%. Like the heat pump water heater 2, it thinks that is my dehumidifier, and I've had a lot of issues with that. Part of it is because of my Wi-Fi problems. I don't know that the firmware on the unit has been updated in a while, so it may be giving some kind of funky readings. I plan to reset this entire system as soon as I get another Wi-Fi router in and I can make sure the firmware is updated. I'm going to start this whole thing over again because a bunch of stuff has changed in my house and there's some things that aren't picked up as well as I would like. But you can still get an idea. So like the dryer uses a fair amount of juice. It was 10% of the energy used that day. The other leg of the heat pump water heater, which is probably real, was 8%. So there's two legs that are about the same. So I know that 16 or 17% of the power that day was used by the water heater. And if I click usage here, it's 31. So what does that mean? Something... well, actually, I don't have to do the math. I can just click this. 2.7 kilowatt hours. So about 6 kilowatt hours of the 31 for the day were used for hot water heating. And that's pretty cool to know. If that was a straight electric water heater, it would be triple or even quintuple that. They use a lot of juice. So that's part of why I chose that particular unit. You can see the microwave. Here's the well pump, which we just saw earlier. It pulls a ton of wattage when it's on, but it only runs for a few seconds at a time, so it doesn't end up pulling that much overall. The dishwasher, which it also thinks is my coffee maker. The fridge uses very little power, so 3 cents for that day, which is pretty cool. There's look at that, the toaster used about half the energy of the fridge just making toast a couple of times. So it helps give you an idea of what's going on. So if you have a crazy energy bill, you can begin to figure it out. Okay, so that is the first two items there. Let's look at devices. And this is where you can see AC8 right now it thinks is on. That's funky. I don't know what that is. Actually, you know what? That is probably the heat pump water heater because each leg of it pulls about 300 watts. or it could be 300 there. So you see the AC8, which you can click on, or the heat pump water heater 1, which is 200. That could be the other leg of it. But I don't trust those numbers right now, which is annoying to me. But I do trust the overall usage day by day because that matches up to reality pretty well. And so you can scroll down. Here's another weakness. You can see AC 3, 4, 5, and 7. It thinks that I have 8 air conditioners in my house, which I don't. We do use window units, and we have 3. We generally only run 1 or 2 of them, though. So that's kind of an annoyance and another reason that I want to reset this thing. Bath fan heater. We have a heater in the bath fan of one of our bathrooms, and my wife is always cold, so she usually kicks that on in the morning. You can see it pulls a lot, pulls 1100 watts. It's usually running for 13 minutes at a time. It's been off for an hour, so my wife got out of the shower just a little bit ago. It's the wonders of self-employment. Been up for a long time, but you shower later in the morning. And you can see it's been on 37 times this month, and it's used about 10 kilowatt hours. So having that on has cost about $1 for the month. So my wife's comfort is worth $1. That's fine. I don't care. And then when it comes to odometer and speedometer function down here, you can see it is amazing once again. So you can see how much was used day by day, what percentage of it is. And then power meter, you can see when it's on. So zoom out. And there it is, 1100 watts. Really pretty cool stuff. Okay, so back in the devices, let's take a look at some of the other things that you can play with. So back into this bath fan, take a look at the notifications button right at the top here. So I can click that, and you can have it tell you what's going on. So it will show on the timeline, which you saw earlier. You can scroll up and down in the main screen and see when things turn on and off. But you can have it alert you, or basically text you, when things turn on and off. So my wife found this creepy, but I thought it was really fun that it would let me know when the garage doors turned on and off, so I could see right when she came home. And I turned it on for mine too, and I don't track it anymore, but that was me finding something funny that she found creepy. It happens sometimes, but you can get an alert when something turns on and off. This is really useful when you're trying to figure out what something is. So you want to get an alert when it kicks on, so you can hopefully go figure out what the heck the thing is. Working with the Sense is very much like being a detective. It figures out what some stuff is easily. It's good at a microwave, a fridge, a vacuum, but a bunch of the stuff is not that great at figuring out what it is. So it's your job to play detective and go figure that out. You can also add a custom alert. Say you want to see if your kid left the space heater on in the morning. You could have it send you an alert when something is on for too long. So that's nice there. You can also hit this edit button at the top, and it will let you can rename it. If this is a guess, you don't know for sure, this means that you aren't going to screw up their database, because you're trying to figure it out. Like, I know it's a Broan fan, and it's in the first floor bath. And you can make notes down here. I mean, it's an incredibly useful little app. So there's all sorts of stuff here. Like we saw, you got odometer and speedometer. You can see what's going on. It's really useful for figuring out what is going on. Okay, the last thing over here is the settings tab at the bottom. And in accounts, so there's my email, and then you can select which notifications you get. I'm ADHD, so I prefer to get emails, not push notifications, so I don't get distracted all the time, which I do anyway. But like at the bottom here, monitor offline, I love that this is there now, because that was a problem for a long time. Sense would go down, it would lose its connection, and I wouldn't figure it out for a couple days or a week because I don't always look at the app to see what's going on. So now I get an email and a push notification. So I'll get a text on my phone when it goes off. And that was actually something I suggested, and I'm sure other people suggested as well. But there it is. They're taking that feedback and turning it into real improvement. Okay, my home. You can see what's going on in here. So there's Nate's house. I can select where the location is. If you have something that's connected to Alexa, or if this then that, you can connect it to that, and then they learn when that thing is turning on and off through Alexa, or if this then that, which is pretty super cool. Data sources, I don't fully understand this one yet, but it lets them look for things that are connected to your Wi-Fi that turn on and off, so they can learn more about that, so they get better at identifying what's going on. So they need to understand not only what a second flute sounds like, but what third trombone or second trumpet sound like, and this helps them learn how to do that better. I love that there's electricity cost, although this is really rudimentary. It's just a flat rate, so if you have time of use or tiered, it's not going to help you that much there. But I have read on their blog that they're working on making this work for other rate structures. But for now, you can at least put something in. And then billing cycle start. This is a new feature, which I love, because my billing cycle starts 6th, 7th, 8th of the month, and it made it kind of tricky to figure out if what the bill said matched up with what Sense said, and they do remarkably well. So within 10, 20, 30 kilowatt hours, which is fine for my purposes. And then the Sense monitor, there's a bunch of stuff in here. So you can see at the top whether it's online or not, what the serial number is, MAC address, all kinds of stuff like that. There's my Wi-Fi. It's Nate and Rachel. I don't have solar on my house, but all of these systems are usually set up to work with solar. You can reset the data, which I plan to do soon once I get my Wi-Fi for this working a little bit better. And then you can see what's going on signals-wise. So one side of the main is pulling 1,300 watts and change right now. The other one's pulling 300 and change. Up, and you can see it dropped. So you can see which side of your box is pulling what. And then these are the different devices that it's presently learning right now. So you get an idea of what it's doing. So that gives you a really thorough overview of this entire app, which I have a bit of a man crush on. So if you are considering an energy monitor and you don't really care about being able to get the data out of it, for one, and you don't mind the fact that there's going to be some detective work when it tells you there's a device and then you have to go figure out when it turns on and off and then name it and chase it down. If that sounds fun and interesting, this is likely a good device to consider. It looks like they're going to continue improving it. It's really a nice little device. So if it's in the option, if it's something you're considering, don't think too hard. It's the least expensive of them at $300. Just snag one, put it in, have an electrician put it in, and start having fun with the thing and figure out where the hogs are in your house. And if you're a geek like me, you just get to learn how the house works. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm Nate Adams. Thanks for watching, and if you find this useful, please subscribe. If you subscribe, don't forget to click the bell so that you get notifications when a new video goes up. And don't forget to share or comments. Any kind of interaction you can do really helps grow this thing. Thank you very much for watching, and again, I'm Nate Adams.